Sadly, there's trash everywhere. If you're like me, it takes something away from the experience of being outdoors when you see it. So, what do we do about it? Pick it up. Problem solved, video's over. There's 7 billion people on the planet. The trash that's purposefully or accidentally left behind by other people doesn't stand a chance. But if I'm sampling not only myself over the timeline of my life, but every person I have come across in the world, this is a pretty rare behavior. But why? Picking up the trash that pollutes our lives is probably the most basic thing we could do to have an impact in the world around us. It requires no knowledge, no skill. If we refuse even this action, how are we going to make a difference on much harder problems? I asked why not pick it up, and maybe a reason comes to mind for you. If so, pause for a moment and ask yourself, do I think there's a good, defensible logic to my reasoning that truly aligns and stands up with my own deepest beliefs? If you have a guilty feeling lurking somewhere down below, why do you accept that reasoning anyways? Is it a justification so you don't need to change? What's so wrong with change? Do you believe you already have everything in life figured out and mastered? Even if you don't feel any guilt about your reasoning, is it formed to keep yourself on the sidelines so you don't need to get involved? Maybe because you don't think you're part of the problem? Whatever you think now, are you open-minded about your reasons why? Or is it an untouchable belief that doesn't even have to be logical, justifiable, or reasonable? Do you want those type of reasons to be what you base the actions of your life on? Why? This isn't just about the trash. It's about you and all of us and our strange psychologies. It's about removing the junk logic that keeps us from expressing the full impact of our own power in life. How little behaviors are actually big behaviors that just get normalized and swept away with big consequence. But let's take it back a few steps. Before we get into the trash specific logic, let's spend a few minutes thinking about the more general logic of being an individual in society, because all of these things are strongly connected. The problems in the world today aren't that complicated. We make them complicated. We do it through these justifications for the way that we think our lives should be, for the lives that we think that we deserve. Things that are in large part based on ideas of society, which very often don't end up being fulfilling to people. That is, things that don't help you see, do, and create real and lasting meaning in your life. All things you can create by taking action on actually important things that more people than just you will appreciate. Society is a big thing, so to say that it's any one thing would be a lie. But much of what the story we're learning to pattern is about is individual accomplishment and success. There's an idea that we should be individually successful because our individual success will translate into what's good for everyone else too. And I think there's a lot of truth in that statement. We do need to focus on finding our own individual success because it makes doing meaningful things much more possible, and it doesn't need to be incompatible with what's good for everyone else too. As my main relative NoPro Mike sums it up, take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Thanks, NoPro. But individual success has to mean something other than your own infinite consumption of things, places, and or people. In the societal view, your individual success, which is supposed to be affirmed by the decision of others, think marketplaces, proves that what you're doing is meaningful to the world, so you should feel justified in taking as much as you want from it. You've earned it. You deserve it. You've done something very valuable. Why else would you have all this money? But this idea of success is much more pernicious and toxic than you might realize, even with my passive-aggressive phrasing. It assumes that you can have it all without taking it all away from other people. In a lot of cases, that's not how things actually work. Having something is an expensive process. In order to have something and truly make it more available for other people, you need to fundamentally alter the amount of total wealth in a system and not just shift wealth around. Maybe moving it from one place to another or taking it from one people or place in order to create an illusion of creating it somewhere else. Perhaps least noticeable of all, taking wealth from the future in order to have it experienced today. We'll talk about this more on the channel this year, our basic idea of what wealth is and where it exists. It's a super critical topic for our lives and for society because it affects so many of the choices that we make. You could start by thinking about this one perspective shift. How do our choices and solutions change when we think about making everyone wealthier in addition to ourselves and eliminating more of the things that don't pass that test? Not all, but many forms of individual wealth outside of our bodies and minds are really just a cost on society, not a benefit to society, although that's certainly a contentious point of view. Why do you think that is? One thing created by defining individual success as having more, coveting novelty, and not thinking about total system wealth is waste. It's a natural byproduct of scaling up for those things without caring about what's beyond us, the less fortunate and less powerful, whether those be somewhere else on the planet or somewhere else in time. When you combine this waste with our misguided justifications for our own individual behaviors, you see waste as a physical outcome of our choices. You see it everywhere. And this is in some sense a good thing. Seeing the problems in our personal and shared lives is a gift. What we can see, we have the opportunity to do something about. But we also learn to not see, a very powerful psychological adaptation. And even when we do see, it's not a given that our next behavior is to try and fix what we see. There are two ways to exercise a problem. You can complain about it and push it onto something or someone else, or you can take responsibility for it and do something about it. Actually, there's a third thing. You can combine the two strategies and very often make it worse. We don't always know what to do about our problems, but most of our problems stem from very basic core issues. I'll say it again, most of the problems in the world are not that complicated. We make it complicated through unreasonable and poorly justified logic and stories. Our expectations have become as outrageous as our normalizations have needed to become to fulfill them. We don't solve our problems because we don't really try. We just complain that someone else hasn't solved them for us. So I ask again, why don't we pick up the trash we see floating through our lives? Let's start with this justification, that we assume that the issue is someone else's fault, that we see litter because someone was careless in leaving it or threw it away purposefully. Now, I'm not saying this doesn't happen, and I know that it does, and purposeful littering may be the main cause in some or most places, but how can you be sure that that's the reason for any individual piece of trash? What we need to open our minds to is the fact that we all make mistakes that we can't see, both in terms of doing things by accident, maybe something we stuffed in our pockets and unknowingly knocked out while reaching for our phone to respond to some text message or social media alert, or opening the car door and a little piece of plastic wrapper gets sucked out and blown away. Or maybe we make mistakes through just not yet realizing how important certain things are in our lives. I may do lots of things today that I think are important and meaningful, but I didn't do many of these things for most of my life, even if I thought that I believed they were important. And even if I do things today, there's no guarantee that I will do these things tomorrow. Again, it's not just littering and trash that we're talking about here. It's the sum of all of our beliefs and their downstream behaviors. You may not litter, but you might do something 10, 100, or 1,000 times worse in the world and simply fail to hold the belief that it matters or that your contribution to the problem matters, which often happens because we fail to understand what scaling individual behaviors means in the human realm, both across time and across individuals. So just because I see litter and my responsibility to it today doesn't mean I see all the problems in the world or tie them to a personal action. In fact, I know with 100% certainty by looking at my past behavior that I do not. Beyond that, not everyone out there is thriving or even surviving from day to day. Some portion of the population is just going to be under so much stress that they can't handle thinking about something outside of themselves, even if that's in some cases the reprieve from their stress. So maybe we all need to look out for each other and take action on the things that we individually can see and can action today, precisely because not everyone else can see and can take action at any given time. But it also may be that when others see you making an effort and taking an action, they might slowly start to see or be reminded of what they once knew how to see. They might start questioning if they can't also take action. I've had a number of conversations with people picking up trash in the R&D for this video that wouldn't otherwise happen because people see me out there on their trails with a bag and are curious. Some have even been effusive in thanking me. That's one reason I know trash means a lot to people and is a shared value of societal meaning. Those types of things don't happen when you're only focused on things that affect yourself. People might congratulate you, but they'll rarely thank you. Litter may be tiny, but how we respond to it is a fundamental concept upon which we build bigger concepts. Our minds are made up of these small but infinitely consequential building blocks of logic. Logic that's monumental to our models of thought and thus our actions and beliefs. And when you get these fundamental pieces wrong, they cascade into unpredictable results in the bigger picture. Unpredictable results make for a challenging life, and not the good sort of challenge, but the really frustrating kind. And when they fail catastrophically. When we get our logic and beliefs about how to approach something as simple as litter wrong, it bleeds into other practices in our life, both from the how of how we decide to approach problems, in this case by ignoring them, and the why of why we decided to deal with it like that in the first place. Because we think ultimately that we're ineffectual as individuals or that we're not part of the problem. How we respond to problems that we can affect is a fundamental piece of our logic. Some people might say that going around and picking up little pieces of plastic that you see in the dirt is nuts. I think it's nuts to do nothing about problems that you can affect and that affect both you and everyone else. This is the how, as in how problems last forever. By doing nothing about them. Here's another justification I think we make for why we don't pick up litter more often. When you never deal with litter, trash, it looks like it gets together and breeds in the night to create more of it. That's not true, but unfortunately it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Over time it breaks down or gets torn up in some way, and one bigger and easier piece of trash to remove suddenly becomes too smaller and harder to see and find and pick up pieces. Thin plastic becomes so brittle under the sun and weather that when you pick it up or it gets disturbed, it falls apart into even smaller pieces. I can't count the number of single-use plastic cups that I pick up and that leave 10 small pieces behind. Other types of trash keeps blowing around into harder and harder to reach places, usually with lots of prickly things discouraging you from getting it, or my least favorite things, ticks. And this process continues, in the case of plastic, basically forever. When you ignore one little piece of litter today, it very well might be 2 pieces of litter tomorrow. But most of the litter I see, whole or not, upon further inspection tends to be relatively old. It's just that we collectively as a society allow it to linger. It looks like the world is a trashy mess because the mess has been scaling over time untouched by any do-gooder. Whatever our true rate of littering in a particular area is, it's almost certainly less than it looks. In other words, the strategy of simply picking it up can be pretty effective as long as we stay consistent. And I'm a big believer that just a few pieces of trash catch our eye much more than when there's trash everywhere. In other words, there's a better chance that someone might see trash and do something about it because there isn't trash all over the place. People tend to believe more strongly in their own effectiveness when they can get something done in one go, where unfortunately they lose some of the belief in their effectiveness if they can only make some small incremental progress. Now, there are plenty of other counter arguments to picking up trash that get deeper and deeper into shifting the problem onto other people and external things to yourself. And they're valid, but in reality, they just become part of the justification for not taking action on something that we are all a part of. Yes, you're a part of it. Whether you think you litter or not, you consume things that become that same trash in the world. Whether we do or do not pick up trash, we at least need to start rewriting the thought process in our head so we can see it and then think, trash, I could and ought to pick it up. Because you are that powerful of a creature that you have the energy and intelligence to see problems and fix them. It's crazy how much potential you have. Reach down and experience it. And then we need people to lead, and leaders that are willing to take the actions that need to be done and not just talk and think about them. That's how problems actually get solved in the world, by doing. People that talk but don't do don't scale as a model of success. Everyone wants to be the executive with all these great ideas and an army of workers ready to do them at their bidding. Have you heard of the adage, work smarter, not harder? Don't do that. Or at least work harder before worrying about being smarter. Because doing that hard work will show and teach you lessons about reality that merely thinking will happily skip over. Because it ruins the beauty of the mental solution. Solutions that almost always involve the inherent risks of externalization. Ding ding. Now, where this argument is the most flawed, and I will dive into, is in the original crux of the problem statement itself. That we're an individualistic society that's too focused on our own individual success instead of the type of success that can be widely shared. Being the only person out there cleaning up trash won't solve the problem. I agree. There you go. Getting 100% of society to take these actions also won't happen. What about 50%? Probably not. 25%? I think for something as fundamental as the trash in our world that it's possible at some point in our society's evolution. But let's say you get just 1 in 100, 1% of people to think it's something they should be doing and want to make it a consistent practice. There are 10,000 people in the town where I am right now. That's a pool of 100 people in your local community just waiting to become a sub-community. And 100 people gathering to take part in something is a powerful and also enticing group of people. People generally want, individually, to be a part of something, collectively. That's because we're fundamentally programmed to want to connect with other people and have our group. People also fundamentally align towards cleaner environments than dirty ones from evolutionary perspectives. Stacking a whole bunch of fundamental alignments together is powerful stuff. When things like litter become noticeable and not just normalized and unseen, the issues they represent become more noticeable. When people better understand their involvement in a problem, back to the beginning of the issue, we have more opportunity to do something about it. And we will if we're well organized psychologically and not filled with endless justifications and junk logic for the endless importance of our own individually oriented notion of success. What's all this blah, blah, blah saying, James? That our individual actions are the base power of our practice, but that we're always more powerful together. And we should always be looking to connect with other people that are trying to do good stuff too. That is, you should do these things if you want to orient your life mission towards making the world a better place, which is the fundamental mission of this channel. That's also why this channel is named after a church, because whatever your experience or belief about them is, I found that the general idea of the congregation of people in them is to be a tight community that supports each other in life. Churches and society are dying, but we actually need the positive aspects of what they have represented in our local communities to return and to thrive. So I invite you to join this church and stay subscribed mentally so that we can keep building ourselves up as individuals and as a community through a focus on the type of things that honor our commitment to our collective wealth and not just the individual. Things where you win and everyone else wins too. It's the yes and approach to life. The vast majority of the honestly good things we do in life don't come from getting ahead of other people, out competing them, and having more in the world than those around us, but in giving more of your time and energy and abilities to things that are bigger than you, and caring less for the faux values of the individualistic modern world where we have everything we need ourselves and try to pretend we don't rely on each other or don't need people that are different than us. Here's your mission for today, and for as long as you stay aware that it is always today. Every time you go out, keep your eye out for one piece of trash. Pick it up and bring it home. You're training yourself to see trash and have a new reaction to it. I like the idea of putting it in a bag or a jar so you can watch how your consistency of picking up just one piece of trash scales with time, and then you can visually acknowledge your positive impact in the world. Fight back against our bias for not recognizing incremental progress. And then that's less time we need to spend as a society paying people to clean up after all of our transgressions, and a little fraction less probable that when we're out enjoying the world, we'll be distracted by a piece of plastic. But also a little fraction more probable that someone will see the trash that is still out there and do something about it. I postulate anyways. Here's one last justification that we make examined. Does this sound like a Sisyphean task? Getting up every day with a mission to undo what is being done at a rate equal or greater than your own individual work? Welcome to life. Life is the Sisyphean task of this exact description. Your expectation for something else is unreasonable. Whether it's keeping our homes clean, or keeping our bodies physically fit, or finding patience to be understanding with other people, it all repeats endlessly, forever. Your attempts to distance yourself from this reality makes it impossible to accept it and just do the work that's always required. The smarter in working smarter, not harder, actually is the hard work. Now, it's true that by stacking enough aligning principles together, problems actually can start to look something like a problem that's being solved, and that's encouraging. When a large enough community spends their individual time and energy on a problem, you start to see real results. Things start happening. People start to ask, why does this problem exist in the first place? How can we work closer to the root of the problem? But those things happen because of hard individual work. That is a magical thing that individual action moves out of future thought and into present action, because we're hardwired to conserve our own individual energy, and we want to improve whatever processes we're actually spending our own individual time and energy on. Working smarter often externalizes our motivation to something else, often at the cost of an order of magnitude more total system energy to do it. Working harder, on the other hand, fuels that inspiration from a deeper connection to the problem, in yourself and in others. All this about hard work, and yet picking up trash is not actually hard work. So why don't you do it? If you're not still death gripping your beliefs, then remember your mission. At least one piece of trash. Sometimes you'll forget. Sometimes you'll see it and think, I ought to pick that up. Keep trying. I managed to pick up quite a bit of trash during this video, just within about a kilometer from my house. You've watched it, so you might have seen it. Maybe you appreciate it. What I can tell you is that there's someone else where you are that's picking up trash that you don't know a thing about and doesn't want anything for their efforts. Pick up one piece of trash for them. And then, congratulations and thank you. You were formerly only part of the problem, at the very least making it worse through your inaction, but you're now part of the solution. You're part of something bigger than yourself, even if you're only aware of yourself for now. This is how incremental progress works. This is how individual action scales. Problems in life start getting solved just like this.
You might think it's something spiritual. but I'm betting on the right hand right